You know what's strange about running a sports bar on the edge of the Andromeda sector? You hear all kinds of wild stories, but believe me, none of them even come close to what I'm about to tell you. The Namsksel. Before I was serving drinks to the finest warriors across the galaxy, I spent 30 cycles training some of the deadliest fighters this side of the cosmic abyss. Back then, I thought I had seen it all: six-armed Zorons, Novar who could breathe plasma, even telepathic blobs from Proxima 9. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for what walked through that door that night. "Another round, Crixel," shouted Blasinar, one of my regulars, his scaly hide shimmering in the purple glow of the neon lights. "And make it strong enough to knock out a Tunnian beast." I was polishing a quantum glass with my third appendage while mixing drinks with the other two, when the hollow feed on the wall caught everyone's attention. The news flashed across the screen in blazing red. "Earth falls, human refugees scatter across the galaxy." "Good riddance," muttered GRA, his tentacles curling with distaste. Those humans got exactly what they deserved, refusing to join the Galactic Defense Alliance. The bar buzzed with murmurs of agreement. Earth had been warned, after all. The Kriax Empire didn't take kindly to independent planets, especially those sitting on quantum-rich territories. But there was something about the footage on the feed that made my pulse quicken. My primary heart skipped a beat. "You're all missing the point," I said, slamming the glass down with more force than I intended. "The humans held off the first 3 Kriax waves using nothing but chemical propulsion and old-fashioned kinetic weapons. Name one other species that's managed that." "Pure Lux," Blasinar snorted, his spines bristling. "They're soft-skinned, 2-armed weaklings with pathetic sensory abilities. No night vision, no echolocation, and no telepathic shields." I watched the footage repeat: the burning human cities, their orbital platforms falling like dying stars. But what really grabbed my attention were the ground battles. Despite the clear technological gap, the humans fought with something I hadn't seen before. It was something that made my training sensors hum with recognition. "You're all missing the point," I repeated, leaning across the bar. "In all my cycles of training fighters, there's one thing I've learned. It's not about the weapons you're born with. It's about how you use what you've got." The bar erupted in laughter, a mix of clicks, hisses, and guttural sounds that would have sent any human running, but I wasn't laughing. Just then, my security scanner pinged, alerting me to a new presence outside. "Speaking of humans," I said, my optical receptors locking onto the door. "Looks like tonight's about to get a lot more interesting." The door slid open with a soft hiss, and the laughter died faster than a quantum slug in a radiation storm. There, framed by the 3 moons of New Vegas Station, stood a figure who would shatter everything we thought we knew about combat, survival, and what it truly means to be dangerous. But that's jumping ahead of the story. First, you need to understand how badly we all misjudged these humans. And believe me, that mistake cost more than just credits. The human walked into my bar like she owned the place, which was bold, considering half the patrons could have swallowed her in one bite. She was dressed in the typical refugee attire: gray, worn-out synthetic fabric, but her demeanor screamed confidence, the kind you usually only see in veterans of the Praetorian Guard. "Welcome to Crixol's," I said, using my universal translator, though my scanners showed she had a basic translation implant. "What can I get you?" "Water," she replied, taking a seat at the bar. "Water? In a bar?" Blasinar almost spat out his drink. Typical human weakness. Can't even handle real drinks. The human turned to face him, her gaze locking with his. The intensity of it made my threat assessment protocols hum to life. "The last time I checked," she said coolly, "staying clear-headed was a strength, not a weakness. Amanda Stone," she introduced herself, then turned back to me. "I heard you used to train fighters." I extended my sensory appendages, running a routine threat analysis. The results were almost laughable. No enhanced musculature, no defensive exoskeleton, her skin as delicate as spore malt. Her bones were solid calcium, practically brittle compared to the carbon-titanium composites most species had. Elevated adrenaline levels, but no combat enhancements. "Used to is right," I said, sliding her glass of water toward her. "Now I just serve drinks and listen to war stories. Speaking of which, you're a long way from Earth." "Earth's gone," she replied, taking a sip. "But I didn't come here to talk about that. I want to enter the Galactic Combat Championship." The bar fell silent, quieter than a vacuum breach. Then the laughter came. "A human in the GCC? We'd make him cry all 6 of his eyes. You wouldn't last 10 seconds against a juvenile Kron Axion. The prelims start in 3 days," Amanda continued, unfazed by the laughter. "I need a trainer who knows the rules. Word is you're the best." "I was the best," I corrected, a hint of nostalgia in my voice. "Even then, I trained fighters with real advantages: natural weapons, enhanced reflexes, biological armor. No offense, but humans are basically walking snacks compared to most competitors. But then, she placed something on the bar, a dataset containing her combat records from Earth. I plugged it into my neural interface, and the moment I saw the footage, all 4 of my eye stalks went wide. "This can't be right," I muttered under my breath. "These combat scenarios are all real." Amanda smirked. "Turns out being a walking snack teaches you a thing or two about survival. But these tactics," I said, watching her take down opponents 3 times her size, "they're completely unorthodox. We call it thinking outside the box," Amanda replied, her smile sharp, reminding me of a Narian blade wolf, something most species forget once they develop natural weapons. Bloss and R slid over, his scales rattling with poorly contained laughter. "Look at her. No claws, no venom sacs, not even basic armor plating. The registration committee will laugh you out of the arena." Amanda stood, and something in her posture shifted, making everyone take an involuntary step back. "You know what's funny?" she said, her voice steady. "Everyone focuses so much on what humans lack, they never stop to think about what we had to develop instead." She moved faster than my combat scanners could track, snatching Bloss Nar's drink with one hand while expertly using his momentum to send him stumbling backward. Not a drop spilled. "Strength isn't just about muscles or armor," she said, setting the drink back on the bar. "Sometimes, it's about knowing how little it takes to bring down something bigger than you." I ran another scan, this time focusing on her neural patterns. What I saw was extraordinary. Where most species followed predictable response patterns, her brain flared up like a quantum processor, running multiple scenarios simultaneously. "You're insane," I muttered after a moment. "The GCC would be suicide for someone like you." "Maybe," she replied, finishing her water. "But sometimes, the best way to change the game is to play it differently. So, are you going to help me? Or should I start looking for another trainer?" Looking back, I should have seen it coming. But, like everyone else, I'd spent too long thinking I knew what made a fighter dangerous. We were all about to learn just how wrong we were. The Galactic Combat Championships application process was designed to filter out the weak. I had watched thousands of hopefuls fail the basic registration scan, their bodies lacking the bare minimum for survival. But leave it to a human to find a loophole. "What do you mean, Exemption Clause 47B? Growled Trasun, the head of the registration committee. His crystalline exoskeleton pulsed with frustration as he glared at the datapad. "The clause says that species with significant technological achievements can bypass the natural weapons requirement," Amanda explained, calm as a space doe drifting in null gravity. "Earth repelled 3 Kriax invasion waves. That qualifies." I stood behind her, barely containing my laughter as I watched the committee's collective disbelief. Vine Trasun spat, "But the preliminary trials start now. Try not to die, human." The paperwork was mind-numbing. The training arena was a massive zero-gravity chamber, lined with quantum steel walls. 30 other applicants floated near the center, a mix of the galaxy's deadliest species. Amanda looked like a lost prey animal that had wandered into the lion's den. "First test," the combat AI announced. "Survival in variable gravity conditions. Minimum time requirement, 30 minutes. The gravity shifted from 0 to triple standard in an instant. Most of the other applicants activated their enhanced musculature or anti-gravity implants. Amanda, she tucked and rolled, using the momentum to latch onto a wall anchor. "Interesting technique," I commented through her comm link, "but you won't survive the impact trials without." She cut me off by pushing off the wall just as the gravity shifted again. While the others struggled to adjust their augmented systems, she was already in motion, reading the fluctuating gravity fields with ease. "Humans evolved on a planet with variable gravity," she explained through controlled breaths. "Not this extreme, but the principle's the same. Watch this." She began timing her movements to the shifting gravity, using each change to propel herself across the chamber. It was like watching a zero-G dance. Every motion calculated, every movement precise. But not everything went smoothly. During the combat simulation phase, she took hits that would have killed a less stubborn species. Her lack of natural armor meant every impact left bruises, and every victory came at the cost of blood and sweat. "This is pointless," grumbled Vex Thor, last cycle's runner-up, after watching Amanda fail her 5th attempt at the plasma barrier course. I was starting to think he might be right when something unusual in the performance data caught my attention. While other fighters showed consistent neural patterns, Amanda's brain activity was constantly shifting, forming new neural pathways with each failure. "Show me that sequence again," I said during our evening review, "the one that kept knocking you out." Amanda nodded and pulled up the holo replay. The plasma barrier activated in a standard pattern, but there was a flaw in its timing. "Impossible," I muttered. "The sequence is random." "No sequence is truly random," Amanda replied, highlighting slight variations in the energy pulses. "Humans are pattern recognition machines. We evolved to track prey over long long distances, to read the weather, to predict seasons. Given time, we can spot patterns in anything. She proved it the next day, becoming the first to complete the plasma barrier course without a single hit. Not through superior speed or strength, but by predicting exactly where each barrier would appear a split second before it materialized. That's not natural, one of the instructors complained. She must be using illegal augments. Scan me all you want, Amanda replied, wiping blood from a split lip she'd earned in hand-to-hand combat training. This is all original equipment. The real breakthrough came during the tactical simulation trials. While other fighters relied on brute strength or natural weapons, Amanda turned every hazard in the arena into an advantage. Toxic gas vents became propulsion systems, gravity anomalies became weapons. She wasn't just surviving the courses, she was rewriting them. I don't understand, I said, watching her review footage of her successful runs. Most species take cycles to develop these kinds of adaptive strategies. That's because they're built to survive in specific ways, she explained. Humans were built to adapt. No natural weapons means we had to become weapons. No armor means we had to become really good at not getting hit. No deadly venom means we had to learn to make our own. Looking at her training data, it finally clicked. Every other species evolved to perfect one thing. Humans evolved to be good at everything. You might actually have a chance, I admitted, as she prepared for the final qualification round. But tomorrow's test is different. No tricks, no environmental advantages, just straight combat against the top qualifiers. Amanda grinned, the kind of smile I'd learned meant she was about to say something either brilliant or terrifying, or usually both. Perfect, she said, wrapping medical tape around her hands, because I've got something special planned. Time to show everyone why humans don't need natural weapons. I had no idea then that her something special would change the face of combat sports forever. But that's the thing about humans. Just when you think you've figured them out, they show you something new. And what Amanda showed us next, well, that's when things got really interesting. The day before the tournament, I found Amanda in my bar, studying old combat footage long after hours. But it wasn't footage of the current champions, it was ancient Earth War archives. These are the moves that'll win me the tournament, she said, pointing to scenes of something called mixed martial arts. Our ancestors figured this out millennia ago, Amanda explained. While other species evolved natural weapons, we evolved the ability to turn any part of our body into one. Those techniques are ancient, I objected, my sensory appendages twitching in concern. The modern GCC is far more advanced. Exactly, she smiled. No one will expect them. The tournament kicked off with its usual spectacle. 100,000 spectators filled the new Vegas Coliseum, their collective roars shaking my pressure sensors. The odds were 1,000 to 1 against Amanda. Her first opponent was Krell, a draconian warrior towering at 8 feet, covered in armored scales with retractable bone blades. The crowd fell silent as Amanda stepped into the arena, clad in nothing more than a simple carbon fiber combat suit. This will be quick, Krell rumbled, extending his blades. Yes, Amanda replied, it will. What happened next had the commentators scrambling for words. Instead of retreating from Krell's superior reach, Amanda closed the distance. She moved in unpredictable patterns, but there was a rhythm to it that only she seemed to hear. When Krell struck, she wasn't there. When he blocked, she attacked from angles that defied logic. Impossible, shouted the lead commentator. The human has locked the draconian primary joint using only leverage and positioning. This technique hasn't been seen in modern combat. Amanda's victory was so swift that many missed it. A precise strike to a nerve cluster, followed by a joint lock even Krell's strength couldn't break. And suddenly, the tournament favorite was tapping out. Between rounds, rumors swirled in the competitor's area. Some whispered that she had illegal neural implants, others swore she must be using banned combat drugs. The tournament medical scanners proved them all wrong. She was just human, and that frightened them more than any enhancement could. You got lucky, Vexthor sneered after watching her win her second match. But luck runs out, especially against me. Amanda didn't reply. She was too busy studying footage of her next opponent, a quantum-shifted warrior who could phase through solid matter. The betting odds had dropped to 100 to 1. How do you fight someone who can become intangible? I asked during our strategy session. Simple, she answered. You don't fight their strength, you turn it into their weakness. Her third match proved her point. Razzle, the quantum shifter, had never lost a match. His ability to phase through attacks made him practically untouchable. But Amanda had observed something in his previous fights, a split-second delay between shifts. She lost the first round badly, letting Razzle phase through her attacks as she studied his patterns. The crowd began jeering, certain the human's luck had finally run out. Then round 2 began. Amanda switched tactics completely. Instead of trying to hit Razzle, she started predicting where he would materialize. Each time he phased, she was already moving to that spot. The pivotal moment came when she deliberately left an opening, luring him into a phase strike. "Got you," she whispered just before Razzle phased back into solid form directly into a spinning kick that struck him in mid-shift. The impact sent him sprawling, his concentration shattered. The unexpected neural feedback disrupted his phasing ability, leaving him unable to recover. The crowd exploded in excitement. The odds quickly dropped to 10-1, but it was her fourth match that truly showcased the potential of humans. Her opponent was a hive mind fighter, 3 bodies controlled by a single consciousness. Traditional fighters despised facing hive minds because their synchronized attacks were impossible to predict. Amanda spent the entire first round getting pummeled. I nearly threw in the towel, but something in her eyes made me hesitate. She was learning, adapting, recognizing patterns even the hive mind's collective consciousness couldn't see. Neural combat patterns are predictable, she explained later. The human brain is messy, chaotic. Sometimes that's an advantage. Round 2 was a completely different battle. Amanda began moving unpredictably, breaking the expected patterns and creating chaos within the hive mind's perfectly synchronized system. Whenever they adapted, she adjusted faster. When they anticipated her, she did the unexpected. The match ended with all 3 bodies on the ground, their shared consciousness overwhelmed by trying to track her seemingly erratic movements. That was when Vex Thor began to take her seriously. I caught him watching her match recordings, his bioluminescent markings glowing with concern. As the tournament's reigning champion, he had automatically qualified for the finals. Now, for the first time in 50 cycles, he looked genuinely worried. "She's not natural," he complained to the judges. "No species can adapt that quickly," but that was exactly what humans had evolved to do. While other species became perfectly suited to their environments, humans became perfectly adaptable to any environment. Where other fighters saw limitations, Amanda saw opportunities. The semifinals brought her face to face with a gravitational manipulator, a fighter who could control localized gravity fields. The crowd was expecting a quick and decisive finish, but instead, they witnessed something completely unprecedented. Amanda allowed herself to be caught in the shifting gravity fields, but rather than resisting them, she used them to her advantage. Every time her opponent increased the gravity, she harnessed the added force to fuel her strikes. When he decreased it, she used the lighter gravity to move faster than seemed possible. The match ended with Amanda executing a move that would be talked about for cycles to come, using her opponent's gravity manipulation to launch herself into a spinning attack that knocked him unconscious. The odds dropped to 2-1. "Tomorrow you face Vex Thor," I said during our final preparation session. "He's won more championships than any fighter in history." Amanda nodded, reviewing the combat data one last time. Then, and Vex Thor? He was about to discover the hard way that natural weapons were no match for human ingenuity. The finals attracted the largest audience in GCC history. Every species was eager to see if a human could actually defeat the undefeated champion. The arena was packed, the betting systems overloaded, and the tension was so thick it felt like you could slice it with a plasma blade. Vex Thor entered first, his bioluminescent patterns glowing with confidence. 8 feet of perfectly honed combat biology, retractable bone spurs, regenerative healing, enhanced strength, and neural reflexes sharp enough to track quantum particles. He'd won the last 3 championships without taking so much as a scratch. Amanda walked in, dressed in the same basic combat suit she'd worn from the start. No weapons, no armor, no enhancements. The contrast was almost comical, like watching a space whale face off against a solar surfer. "Begin," the combat AI announced. Vex Thor struck first, moving faster than most species could perceive. His bone spurs extended mid-strike, aiming for a swift end. But Amanda was already gone, not by predicting his move, but by reading his body language. "Humans call it telegraphing," she said, ducking beneath another lightning-fast strike. "Every movement has a tell, even yours." The champion's bioluminescence flared with anger. He launched into his signature combination, a rapid series of strikes so quick they created afterimages. This move had ended countless matches. Amanda took a hit to her shoulder, spun with the force of the blow, and used the momentum to land a strike of her own. The crowd gasped. No one had ever touched Vex Thor in the finals before. "Impossible," he growled, his bioluminescent patterns flickering in confusion. "No," Amanda replied, settling into a stance nobody recognized. "Just improbable. And humans? We specialize in improbable." What happened next changed combat sports forever. Amanda started moving in ways that defied conventional fighting logic. She switched between ancient human martial arts faster than Vex Thor could react. One moment she was using Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to counter his strength. The next she was delivering Muay Thai strikes targeting nerve clusters. She's not fighting like a modern competitor, I explained to the stunned commentators. She's fighting like thousands of human warriors across history. Each style evolved to counter different strengths. Combined, they're overwhelming. Vex Thor's regeneration was rendered useless as Amanda repeatedly targeted the same spots, never giving him a chance to heal. His neural reflexes couldn't keep up with her constantly changing attacks, and his superior strength didn't matter when she used his own force against him. But the real game changer came halfway through the match. Everyone assumed Amanda was tiring, her movements slowing down. In reality, she had been setting up her endgame. "You know what makes humans truly dangerous?" she asked, circling the increasingly frustrated champion. "We can sweat." The comment left everyone confused until she explained further. Between exchanges, most species shut down from heat exhaustion. Humans? We evolved to regulate our temperature through perspiration. We can keep going long after others need to rest. That's when the strategy became clear. Every movement, every exchange was designed to make Vex Thor work harder than necessary, exhausting him while she conserved her energy. While Vex Thor's biology demanded rest to prevent overheating, Amanda could keep going indefinitely. Persistence hunting, I whispered to myself, recalling our earlier conversation. The champion's movements became frantic. His flawless form began to break down as his body temperature soared. His regeneration struggled to keep up with the energy demands, slowing with each passing moment. Meanwhile, Amanda continued at her unyielding pace, her attacks precise and relentless. The turning point came when Vex Thor launched his quantum speed combination once more. This time, Amanda didn't evade. Instead, she stepped directly into the attack, taking the hit and landing 3 of her own in return. The champion staggered, his bioluminescence fading with exhaustion. "That's the thing about natural weapons," Amanda said, closing in for the finish. "They're only effective if you have the energy to use them." The final sequence was a masterpiece of simplicity. A feint to make him commit to an attack, a shift in stance that any human martial artist would recognize as a setup, and then a combination that drew from half a dozen ancient fighting styles. Vex Thor, the undefeated champion, crumpled to the arena floor, unconscious. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, as if released from a pressure chamber, the crowd erupted in pandemonium. Bookmakers fainted, commentators screamed in disbelief, and medical scanners rushed in to confirm that both fighters were still alive. Amanda stood in the center of the arena, barely winded, and bowed to her fallen opponent. It was a human gesture that would soon become a staple in the GCC. "How?" Vex Thor asked later in the medical bay, his voice full of disbelief. "How did you overcome every natural advantage?" "Because humans don't believe in natural advantages," she replied. "We believe in learning, adapting, and overcoming. Every technique I used was developed by humans who faced bigger, stronger, faster opponents. We turned our weaknesses into strengths." The ripple effect on galactic combat sports was immediate and profound. Training centers began to incorporate human martial arts. Fighters shifted their focus from raw power to efficiency. The phrase "fight like a human" became the highest honor in combat circles. But perhaps more importantly, it changed the way the galaxy viewed humans. No longer were we seen as weak, defenseless creatures who refused to evolve natural weapons. We were recognized as something far more dangerous, a species that had turned adaptation itself into a weapon. The Galactic Combat Championship ceremony was unlike anything seen in its thousand-cycle history. Traditional celebratory protocols were thrown out the window as representatives from every major species flocked to speak with the human champion. Amanda stood atop the quantum crystal podium, her simple combat suit still bearing scorch marks from her grueling battles. The contrast between her and the statues of past champions around the arena was stark. While those statues displayed natural weapons and armor, she stood as a testament to the quiet confidence of someone who had fundamentally changed the game. In recognition of unprecedented achievement in combat innovation, announced High Commander Zal Trix, his ceremonial wings outstretched, "We present not only the championship title, but also the Order of Combat Evolution, the medal, an exceedingly rare honor, reserved only for those who fundamentally change combat sports," floated before her in a gravity field. Previous recipients of the Order of Combat Evolution had earned it through the creation of groundbreaking biological weapons or revolutionary genetic enhancements. Amanda, however, had earned it by utilizing techniques thousands of years old. Before the official presentation, Amanda spoke, her voice carrying through the arena's acoustics. "I request permission to demonstrate one final technique." The crowd leaned forward in anticipation, and even the High Commander's wings twitched with curiosity. Amanda called for volunteers from the audience, specifically the top fighters from 6 different species. They stepped forward, each wielding natural weapons that would send most humans running in fear. "Combat isn't about being the strongest," she said, positioning herself at the center of the demonstration area. "It's about understanding strength itself." What followed was a masterclass in human martial arts. Amanda demonstrated how each of humanity's fighting styles had evolved to counter specific strengths, how ancient human warriors had developed ways to defeat opponents capable of crushing mountains or moving faster than sound. "Your natural weapons are impressive," she said, helping a quantum blade fighter she'd just thrown to his feet, using their own momentum. "But they made you forget the most fundamental aspect of combat, the mind that wields them." The High Commander's voice resonated through the arena. "You have proven more than skilled today," he declared. "You have proven that evolution takes many forms. Some species evolved claws and fangs, some evolved armor and venom. Humans evolved something far more potent, the ability to adapt to any challenge." The ceremony ended with something unprecedented, a formal review of human combat techniques for inclusion in the Galactic Combat Archives. What had once been considered primitive was now recognized as revolutionary. "The betting systems are still crashing," I said to Amanda later that night, as my bar had become the unofficial gathering spot for fighters eager to learn more about human combat styles. "Good," Amanda grinned, watching a Zoran try to explain Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to a bewildered Novak. Maybe they'll learn to stop underestimating humans." The shift in perception was already underway. Where once aliens had viewed humans as weak for lacking natural weapons, they now looked to our martial history with awe. The realization that humanity had spent millennia perfecting ways to overcome stronger, faster opponents transformed their contempt into genuine respect. "You've started something," I said, juggling drink orders with all 3 of my appendages. "The combat academies are already starting to revise their programs. That's the funny thing about humans," Amanda replied, helping a young Dracolith perfect a basic stance. "We never wanted to be the strongest. We just wanted to find ways to win." The High Commander's closing words at the ceremony echoed perfectly. "Let this championship be remembered not just as a victory, but as a lesson. The most dangerous weapon in the galaxy isn't claws, venom, or quantum powers. It's the determination to overcome any obstacle, the creativity to find new solutions, and the will to never give up. In other words, to be human." As I looked around my bar that night, seeing aliens from every corner of the galaxy practicing human martial arts moves, I realized we had witnessed more than just a championship. We had seen the moment the galaxy finally understood what made humans truly dangerous. 10 cycles have passed since Amanda Stone changed the course of galactic combat forever. My bar has since become a landmark, the place where it all began. These days, I serve more water than anything else. Seems humans were right all along about staying clear-headed. The Galactic Combat Championship looks nothing like it used to. Fighters from across the galaxy now train in what they call hybrid styles, melding their natural abilities with human martial techniques. The betting odds are never 1,000 to 1 anymore. No matter the species, Amanda now runs the most prestigious combat academy in the Andromeda sector. Her students range from quantum shifters to hive minds, all learning the same truth. True strength doesn't come from what weapons you're born with, but from how you use what you have. Sometimes, late at night, when the bar grows quiet, refugees from distant wars wander in. They all ask the same question: is this where the human fought? I tell them yes, but that's not what matters. What matters is that she taught us all something. In a galaxy full of evolved weapons, the most powerful adaptation is the ability to adapt itself. And that's what makes humans the most dangerous fighters in the galaxy. Not because they're stronger, faster, or naturally armed, but because they never stop finding new ways to win. Now, I say, looking around at the crowd, who's ready for another round of water?